Continuing on with our outstanding guest speaker series, today the TMCC Library Open Genealogy Lab is proud to present Irene B. Walters. Irene came to Houston's Clayton Public Library Center for Genealogical Research from New York in 1997 after receiving her librarian degree from the State University of New York at Buffalo. Irene has given talks to many groups on various aspects of genealogical research, including computers, the internet, ancestors in the modern military, using newspapers for your research, passenger list searching, naturalization records, obituaries, New York State, and Irish research. Irene started her own genealogy research as a teenager and has taken her lines back into France, Ireland, and recently Germany. Today's topic is Long Live Your French Ancestors. In today's class, she will explore some methods of finding and understanding the records created by your French ancestors. Huguenot, French Canadian, and direct migration from France to America will be touched upon, as well as church and civil registration in France and Canada. So without further ado, I'd like to offer a warm virtual welcome to Irene. And I'll ask that everyone please turn off their cameras and their microphones until the guest speaker is done. And then if you have a question, please put it into chat box, and I'll be asking those questions throughout the presentation. And of course, at the end of the presentation, you're welcome to turn your cameras and microphones back on and ask questions directly. So John, if you could please turn off your camera. And Todd, if you can turn off your camera. We just got John left. There you go. Okay, and I will turn off my camera, and Irene, welcome.
Okay, thank you, Sue. As Sue said, our talk today is Long Live Your French Ancestors. Please forgive me if any of you have a much better command of the French language than I do, because I will butcher some of the French words in this talk, but it's vive vos ancêtres François. And I'm Irene B. Walters, my good picture from the Clayton Library Center for Genealogical Research in Houston, Texas. And it's part of the Houston Public Library. We are a special collection library, and as part of the Houston Public Library, we have our own building, and it has been a separate collection and separate building since 1967. Houston Public Library's mission statement is that we link people to the world, and our unofficial slogan here at Clayton Library is we are linking you to the world of your ancestors. So today we're going to do French genealogy research. And when you are doing your French genealogy research, you want to go from now to then. You want to go backwards in time, same as if you're doing any genealogy research. With French research, go from small to big. Your research records are mostly created in the towns in France when you're actually doing the French records themselves. And you go from town to department or département to the region and then to the country. So from the town, in my ancestors' case, Villiers to Moselle to Lorraine to France. And you want to go from the local church to the diocese and to any then record keeping that is higher up than that. Go from civil registers to church records and to other archival records like notarial records, if you can get your hands on them. French localities. So prior to the French Revolution, France was divided into provinces. And these are the provinces that were prior to the French Revolution. So they roughly correspond to regions today, but there's a few that have been broken up into more or smaller areas, smaller regions than the provinces were. So the provinces, now known as regions, and these are the regions. So down where Aquitaine and the Mid-Pyrenees is. That area totally changed its name. Alsace and Lorraine are still there. They just their name changed slightly, but they on that one I will say most people say Alsace-Lorraine as if it's one place. It's two different distinct regions. So as you're looking around in France, remember each of these regions is distinct. They are as different as states are in America. Your record keeping is a little more consistent in them than it is here in America, because France told everybody to do things at certain times, and they changed their record keeping right about within a few years of each other, and we're keeping the records the same way. It's just actually getting the record to see the records now gets a little different. In 1789, those regions were reorganized into departments. There are 100 departments in France, and this is how those break down. So Lorraine has 4 departments, and Alsace has 2. I'm not going to try and pronounce any of them others than Moselle, because that one is the same in English and French. And it doesn't leave off any sounds that are written, any letters that you can see. But each region is divided into at least 2 departments, up to 5 or 6, or one, I can see one that has at least 8. Within the departments, they use townships or municipalities, or the French will use the word communes or commune for a town. Large towns and cities such as Paris can be further divided into arrondissements. So when you are if you are dealing with Paris or any large city, the records are not all one, just, okay, here's Paris's records. It is the various arrondissements in Paris. And this is the arrondissement map for Paris. So we have the Bastille, the Champs-Élysées, can't say that right, and so forth, the Latin Quarter. So those are the different arrondissements. In French record keeping, civil registers or registrars d'état civil began in 1792 and continue until today. France and most countries outside of America make records available after they are 100 years old, both birth, death, and marriage. They do not just, here in America, it's divided by state when they're available, and it could be that the death has to be more than 30 years old or more than 50 years old, or the birth has to be more than 75 years old and the person it has to be dead, but it's all up to each individual state. Most other countries just do a straight cut off of it has to be over 100 years, and France is no exception. The church registers, on the other hand, the registrars parish, I guess say that right. The earliest are from the 1300s. You're not going to find a lot of those from the 1300s or 1400s, because most places started really in the 1500s. They're harder to get a hold of after 1792. Records that are pre-1792 that are church registers and parish registers, they were the official registers of the country. The Catholic and I'm talking about Catholic Church records before 1792. The Catholic Church and the government were tied into each other, and so Catholic Church registers are the records, the official records before 1792. After 1792, they did not have to keep them and give copies to the various archives and so forth in France. So they're just harder to get a hold of. They're still capped. The various churches do still keep the registers. They just are not necessarily microfilmed by Family Search and so forth after the 1792 time period. Birth in France, for civil registers, you're looking for naissance records, and the birth name, and literally the word born, if you see "ni" with one E or two E's, and it may or may not show the accent mark above it. It depends on if it's actually written in the French or if it's written in English. That means the name that somebody was born with. And you will see this for females, that their name is Barbara Brio, or Barbara Nee Brio, wife of John Bush. That means Brio was what we call in America her maiden name. The birth records contain the place, date, and time of registration, not always exactly the date and time of birth. Usually the date of birth is in a French État civil record. They recorded them pretty quickly within a day or two of the child's birth, because you're going just to the town. You don't have to go to the county seat or the departmental seat and things like that. It will give the child's full name, should give the parents' full names, including what mom's maiden name is. And one reason it will do this is because technically in France, women never lose their maiden name. So you will find their name as the same. You'll find Barbara Brio as Barbara Brio while she's in France, always as Barbara Brio. It should give the ages of the parents. I will say I've seen quite a few where it gives the age of the father and not always the age of the mother. Gives their domicile, or where the couple is actually living when the child's born, the occupations, if both of them have an occupation or if just dad has an occupation, and it will tell you if mom and dad are actually married or not when the child is born. They did register children's births for people who were not married and name the father. It does not just have mom's name on it. Once in a while, you will find one where dad's name is not on there, but from all of the records I've looked at for French, and I will say my mom's side, every single one of her ancestors is from France. So on my mom's side, I'm fully one half French. Because of my mom's side, she technically, would have been 100% French. Of all the records I've looked at, I have seen maybe 2 or 3 that were just the mother's name on a child's birth. The witnesses, you get at least 2 for État civil records, and they will give the same details as the parents, and which is nice because a lot of times at least one of the 2 witnesses is a relative. You will also see where it'll be somebody that as the dad was going to the Marie's office, or the mayor's, technically mayor's office, Marie, to give the information that my wife had a child. I'd kind of joke that he would stop at one of the houses next to the Marie's office and say, "Hey, you want to come in and witness my, we just had a new baby, and you want to be one of my witnesses." And I have in the town of Villiers in France, Nicholas Lallier, who is one of my ancestors. He is on so many records in the Etat Civil, because I was like, he had to have had his shoemaking shop somewhere near the Marie's office, and they would go stop and say, "Hey, Nick, come on in and witness my kid's birth or somebody's death," or whatever. After 1922, you will start, if you are able to get a hold of the records, you will also see parents' dates and places of birth, not just the town that they were living in when the child was born. Also on birth records, you will see margin entries starting in the 1880s. So over on the usually left-hand side of the page, they'll start in a little bit and they'll have the child's name on the actual left-hand side, and then the record will start in about an inch. If the person got divorced, married, a legal separation, or died, they would start writing on their birth records in the Etat Civil. And in 1886, they started writing the date and place of divorce. 1897, they started writing the date and place and who they married. After 1938, they would start writing if there was a legal separation. And on their birth record, after 1945, they would record their death, and it would be the place and date of death. On a marriage record in the civil registers, the word for husband is either mari ipo or Marie with, IE or just I. For the wife, femme, espouse, and Marie, and I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce the difference between the male and the female, but the female written is with two E's for the married wife, and one E or no E for the husband. They contain the place, date, and time of the marriage itself. For the couple, their full names, ages, domicile, and occupation, and the parents' full names, ages, domicile, occupations, and if they are alive or deceased. So you would get, if the father of the groom is dead, you should get his, you wouldn't necessarily get the age, but the something about what town the father was from and what occupation he had when he was alive, if he had died before the marriage took place. If there is a marriage contract, which would be a separate set of records, you would get some of the details of the marriage contract within the civil register marriage record. And for the two witnesses to the marriage, the same details as the couple. And witnesses to marriage are most often, there's related, one of them being related to the groom and one being related to the bride. I've seen a lot of brothers of the groom and bride being the witnesses. They also can contain an acknowledgement and legitimacy of any children born before the marriage, and some details of a previous marriage for someone, so that to prove that the person was legally able to be remarried or married for a second or third time or whatever. that they were married at a certain date and that spouse died and they're now marrying somebody else. For death records or deceased records, and a word in French that you will see in the record meaning the person who is deceased is defunct, like defunct in English. They have the place, date, and time of the registration, and almost always the place, date, and time of death. Record keepers, yes, once in a while do screw it up and don't put the actual date, place, and time of death, but most of the time they actually get it in there. The deceased full names and domicile, the witnesses, at least 2 names, ages, domicile, and occupation, and the marital status of deceased, the name of spouse, if alive or deceased, sometimes. The marital status is usually there. They don't always include the name of the spouse if they are deceased. Most of the time they include the name of the spouse if the spouse is alive. They can also contain the parents' full names, domicile, occupations, and if they're alive or deceased. Usually on French death records, you get the parents' names if it is a child, or if one of the parents is the one telling the Marie about the death of their child, whether it's a 20 or 30-year-old child, or if it is a 2-month-old baby or whatever. Women are always filed under their birth surname, not their married surname. When you look at a death record and you see that it is for like Barbara Brio, it would say Barbara Brio, wife of John Bush, and it would be registered that way. So don't try looking for French women don't try looking for her as Barbara Bush. You will never find her in the indexes to the actual records as Barbara Bush, the ones that were created at the time the record was. If they've been digitized and put online, and if they were indexed by someone who understands the French record, they would put her as both Barbara Brio and Barbara Bush. Until 1865, death civil registers were registered in the place of birth, regardless of where they lived at the time of death. So you might know exactly where they lived, and that it's one town like Gros Reterching, but they were born over in Villiers, so their death record might be over in Villiers versus in Gros Reterching. So look at the towns surrounding your the place that your person lived to see if maybe their record is in another town. You will also want to look for tables de mutations for wills and inheritors of stuff. You don't find them a lot necessarily online or with Family Search for France, but you will find them sometimes. Now, the church registers or registres paroissiales, I know I'm butchering that one, sorry. Baptisms are baptême. And remember, most of these registers are Catholic church records I'm talking about. They contain the date of baptism, sometimes the actual birth date, not always, the child's name and sex, the parents' full names, that can vary a little bit. Sometimes you just get the mother's first name. You don't always get her maiden name. If they were married or not. The godparents are the ones listed that are the same as the witnesses. You'll get their names in a church baptism record, and you will get, and I know this one will sound funny, you will get what religion they are in the church registers. This is because the Catholic Church, as I said, was the legal church of France. It was the record keeper for France. No matter what religion you were when your child was born, you went in and had the child's birth registered in the church, in the Catholic Church. And they would get registered in the baptism books. And if you were Jewish, you went into the Catholic Church, had your child registered. It would give, instead of a date of baptism, is the date of birth. It would date of registration and date of birth for the child. If they weren't Catholic. If they were Catholic, sometimes all you will get is the date of baptism. So if they're Jewish, Mennonite, Church of England, whatever religion they were, Lutheran, it will be registered in the Catholic Church records, especially before 1792. Marriages it's the word marriage with one R. Husband and spouse, it's the same words that you use in civil registers, and you will see bands, publications bands with one N. They contain the couple's full names, ages, the parish they actually belong to, the occupation, and the occupation, it will vary some. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not, but most of the time it's there. The date of marriage. Witnesses for marriages can be anywhere from 2 to 4, and you'll get the same details about them as the couple. You should get the parents' full names, ages, domicile, occupations, and if they're alive or deceased. And the same as if it was a civil register, the same type of information. And the fact that if the bands were actually published, you will get information on what dates the bands were published, because they would have to publish the fact that this male and this female want to get married and are supposed to be getting married in this church on this date, and they would publish them for like 3 weeks in a row to give anybody the chance to come in and say, wait a minute, I object. He's already married to me, and we're still married. I'm still alive. We didn't get anything. Nothing happened for us to not be married. And there, you also will get details of parental consent if the parents, if the couple were young enough that the parents had to consent. Now, in France, young enough that the parents had to consent is a little different than what we've had always in America. In America, it's usually been if the bride is like between 16 and 18, or anything younger than 18, we had to have the parents' consent. Groom up to 20 or 21. Any age younger than that, the parents had to consent. In France, it could be almost all the way up to age 30, depending on if the parents objected to the marriage. They had to go to different parts of the family and get permission. The head of the family, the head of the the grandparents, things like that. And so you could have denial of consent for quite a ways. Usually that happened more in a family that had money than it happened in most of our ancestors who were, of course, farmers and laborers.
Irene, for the benefit
Yes.
of the newcomers for today, hold on.
Mhm.
For the benefit of the newcomers today, could you define what a ban is?
Yeah, it's the publication of the fact that um, a couple want to get married, and they literally at um, church service would say for like 3 weeks in a row, this couple is going to get married. Like right now, they would that on the second Sunday of January 2022, this couple is going to get married. So if anybody has just cause for them not to be married, let us know. And they would do this for 3 weeks in a row, and sometimes they would actually publish. They would also call it publishing a ban. They would write it on a sheet of paper and tack it to the church door so that anybody that's going by can look and see that, oh, wait a minute, John Bush is getting married. He married my sister 2 years ago, and my sister's still alive, and he moved to another town. He can't marry her if it's the same John Bush. And so that and that happens in the publication of bans happens in basically every religion. It's almost always as a part of the religious ceremonies, and you can see stuff about publication of bans right up into the 1900s. So it's and even here in America, I have a notice in the newspaper that my who was it? My mom's aunt published that it was a publication of the bans from the church, or from it was in a church like column in the newspaper that they published the bans for them about being married. And it's that part in the ceremony where we all joke about, is there anybody seen just cause why this couple should not be married? Speak now or forever after, hold your peace. Well, we bring it down to one line now, but it used to happen for over the course of anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks, because it could be like every other week at the church. Another church register that you see, you don't really see necessarily a death register. You see a burial register, the fact that they're getting buried. And sepulture is the French for the fact for the word burial. Burial records from the church contain deceased's full names, the age at death, date and place of death, and their occupation. You get two witnesses. Many times they both are relatives, but at least one has to be a relative to notify the church that they died and need to be buried. And the name of the spouse, and if the spouse is alive, or if the spouse had predeceased them, it's about a 50-50 if you're going to find the name of a predeceased spouse. If the deceased is a child, with the church registers, you'll get the parents' full names. Again, women are filed under their birth surname, not their married surname. Now, with looking at the actual French records, you really want to start with the records at the LDS library in Salt Lake. Look at their catalog and do a place search for the town or village that your ancestor is from in France, and look for the civil registration subject heading or the church records subject heading. Those two subject headings will give you the most, those will be the actual records. If you don't find it for the place itself, try looking at the French map and look at the little towns around your area, and try each one kind of around there within the department, because sometimes the Etat Civil or the church records, sometimes the town really was so small that they went to the records are all in the next town over. Do a place search for the department and look for civil registration indexes. These are subject headings for the tables decennials. And what the tables decennials are is they went through the civil registers and created an index that the French word table kind of translates as index in this case. And they did an index for 10 years and kind of published it or put it together as one book. And then they did another book for 10 years. They can be either an index across the 10 years so that you have every Bush child, every Lallier child, every Kirshner child born across that 10 years done alphabetically. So they're all together, and it'll say, it'll give you the date, the child's name, the date that the record is, or it can be 10 one-year indexes together in the book. Also do a place search for emigration and immigration as the subject heading, because your French ancestors had to ask for permission to leave France. So if you're looking at your actual ancestor or your immigrant ancestor, then look for the emigration and immigration under the department. Those records are not at the town or village level. Also do a place search for the region and look for emigration and immigration. Occasionally you will get the emigration and immigration at the region level. You asked for permission through the department level. So my Villiers ancestors, they were from the Department of Moselle. They asked at Moselle. The Moselle Archives holds those records. But Moselle is in Lorraine, and a lot of times you'll get somebody who will write a book about those from Lorraine coming to America or something, or going to England or whatever. So that's why you would find it under the region and some under the department.
Irene, I have a question.
Yes, sure.
Under the other circumstances, you're talking about how the women were always under their maiden name, not their married name. When they traveled, was it the same case? Did they use their maiden name or their married name when they immigrated?
You will see both happening, but most of the time, what I have found happen, I've seen it as the married last name. My John Bush and Barbara Brio, who I've commented quite a few times here, that's actually a couple of mine that are from Villiers in France. And on the actual passenger lists for New York, they are both listed as Bush. I have seen some where they are listed with the maiden name. And because actually when you do a passenger list, the list was supposed to be written in the country that the boat is coming from, because it's as they bought their ticket to get on the boat. And so you have dad buying it for him, his wife, and whatever kids are coming. So they get listed. And so you would think that the clerk, who's like from France, would write her as the maiden, her maiden name. But I think I see it more often than not that it is listed as whatever the married last name is. And I think it was just a little bit easier sometimes for them to go, oh, here's this group is coming together and it's all the same last name, or same, it's one family. So but you will see it. I have seen some where it's under what her maiden name is, but it's I see it more often under the married last name. Now, France is putting quite a few of their French records online. When you are looking at the French records in Family Search, not all of them obviously have been indexed, but they have, Family Search has now finished microfilming, or not microfilming, digitizing all the microfilm that they have that they are going to digitize or have permission to digitize. And that includes the French records. But France itself did not give them permission to digitize all of the French microfilm that they have. They have microfilmed French État civil and French church records and so forth, parish registers. Most of the État civil, LDS does not have permission to digitize and put online because the archives in France are putting them online. France itself is digitizing stuff and putting it online. So if you go, and these websites are in your handout, so you don't have to write them down. The list of archives in France through Wikipedia, so that you can see what the different ones are. Links to the French archives that are online, and basically every departmental archive is online and has some records at least up. When you are looking at the online ones, each one is different because even though France as a country has said do this, each one has gotten however far they've gotten and started in whichever record set that they wanted to start in. GeneNet is a huge French website and organization that you want to join. If you're doing French research, you can join for free. They have a free section and a paid section, and you can search on there and find stuff. Right now, even though I have so much French ancestry, I don't pay for my GeneNet or Filier.com. Same thing with Filier. They have free and paid sections. I don't pay for either one until I want to actually devote a certain huge chunk of time to working on them. GeneNet, I get emails from, Lord, I think I get one every week from them for stuff that they're doing and stuff they're putting online and like that. So it helps to actually sign up and get the free account at least so that you can find out what's going online. There's a little more on GeneNet than on Filier. It's been around longer, and so there's more stuff of things that are not official records. They are digitized old books and maps and all sorts of stuff. Now, on the list of archives in France, it comes up. Yes, a lot of the stuff is in French, but you can the Wikipedia by itself is English, but it tells the various archives in their French names. It will have links to them, or at least a link to a page about them. And then you get the different departments of France, the archive departments. And though it also takes you to a map, departmental archives online, and you need to know on the map where your department actually is. So I have to have a map up myself, either printed out or like up on my phone that I'm to go, okay, this is the outline of Moselle, And this is where I want to click, because I keep wanting to flip Alsace and Lorraine around of that. Lorraine is more east in France than that Lorraine's more east than Alsace, but it's the other way around. It's slightly it's on the west side of Alsace. So the departmental archives for Moselle, we come onto the website, and of course it's in French. You can get it to translate into English using Google and so forth, but it does not take you all the way down into everything. And you search researches is research, archives, and Ligne, Ligne, archives online, and I believe the G is actually silent, so it should be archives online. And then you get parish registers, photographs, tables decennials to état civil, cadastry, which are maps, registers for those who join the military, and I don't remember what the last one is off the top of my head, because one, I've never found anything under that I needed. That's why it hasn't stuck in my head. This just happens to be Moselle. Other ones, you're going to get the word for research, and you're going to get the words for archives in line. You'll get these titles, but you will get they may have more than just the tables decennials for the état civil online. So far, Moselle has just put the tables decennials. So if I want to look at the actual état civil for my towns in France, right now I have to go to Salt Lake and look at those microfilms. Since Salt Lake has not been able to digitize them and put them up online. Now, I will say, when you are looking for the parish registers, they have LDS does have permission to digitize and put online the parish registers for France. So those you can look up, click on, and you will get the fact that they're digitized and online. They may not be indexed online, where you can search the index, but they are online. So I looked at the parish registers, and it gives me a nice long description in French that I have to copy into Google Translate and translate, telling me what's on and what's not online. They have not put all the parish registers online for my area, but I can search by town. I get into where I can search by commune, and what can I find, what can't I find. So I had to do the choice of municipality for Villiers, and it's telling me that it's still to digitize or to be digitized. Look at them in the town hall, because this is the French website, so of course they're telling you to come into there. But before 1692, look for the town of Landroth instead of Villiers. If I look for the town of Gros-Retterching, it comes up with the dates, and you do the same type of thing. Now, Gros-Retterching, they have actually put some of them online. They've put baptisms, marriage, and death, and from the different records that they have. Unfortunately, the time period that they have online at the moment is not the one I need. But you will get, most of them are using this same software, and this is kind of the type of record you will get. You can download them. You have to play around with what the things are. You put the record into your basket like you're going to purchase it, but then you can download it off from the basket. You can search in. Some you get nice handwriting, some you get, of course, the genealogy crappy handwriting. For tables decennials, what you could get, you get the same type of thing where you pick your town. Whoops, it popped quick there. I had a couple different things for Grow-Rutterching. The town of Singling is a part of, their records are part of Grow-Rutterching, and we get for the Commune de Grow-Rutterching the tables, decennials, baptisms, and adoptions. And then I get the names and the dates. And this is one of those that is more than 1 year put together, but it depends on which 10-year index I'm looking for. And I wanted to zoom in on this Kirshner area there. Pretty much almost every one of those Kirshners is a brother and sister. There's like, I think 2 of them that are cousins to my Kirshners. But it's almost all the children of my direct line great-grandpa, or great-great-great, I think it's 3 greats grandfather. And the very first Kirshner, Catherine, is the one I descend from. And for marriages, you can get same type of thing, and it will give you both the, it'll give you the groom first and then the bride. It should also have it for most of them. You get the groom and then bride. You will get it alphabetized for the bride also, but as a it will still be listed groom then bride for most of them that I have seen, unless you get a clerk who actually does it differently. And at the bottom is George and Magdalena, George Kirshner and Magdalena Wetzel, who are the parents of all those Kirshner kids we found on the other page. Deaths listed straight, deceased, and then it's listed. So sometimes you have to click page by page to go through to find it. Sometimes you can do it straight. So these are just some examples of the different looks that the records can be look like. And then if we jump over to another French department, the Department of the Ardennes, the page looks different. The getting into the records looks different. We have sources for genealogy on there. And then they have it quickly right off, registers of parish and état civil, registers for joining those who join the military, and tables de successions and absences. Successions and absences are like kind of sort of will and probate. It's probate. So I clicked on the état civil and parish registers, so we pick our town, and then it gives us this huge list of what they have for that particular one for Agincourt. So they look a little different. This one uses a different software to put the stuff up online. So they're not consistent. You just will be looking at your particular town and what is on there. Though it will have, for most of them, marriages and divorces get included in the same book. And you will get record keeping by the French was, I've heard it said that the French taught everybody else how to keep records because they started so early, and what the areas that they went out and colonized and fought and took over in Europe. Wherever the French were, they taught everybody else how to keep records. So they do keep good records, and they started with the records at it, that this is how it gets written and like that. So we have it that way. Military records, you can get that. Some of them you can research the names. In the Ardennes, they actually have them indexed already, so that looking up the name of the soldier named Charbot and what his record is, and you get a French military record for Charbot, and this is 1879. So it's pre-World War. Trying to remember if that was his birth. Born in 1879. So this is a World War I soldier, actually, named Charbot.
Irene, I have a question.
Yes.
Do they do any kind of fuzzy searching? Because we all know that last names can be really hard to work with because of the different possible spellings. Yeah. Does this do like fuzzy searching?
Some of them, and it depends on the archives. Some of them may have fuzzy searching. The ones that I have done, I have worked on in myself, I have not found one that does it. But I haven't found that many who have them indexed yet, either of the ones I've looked at. So I do a lot of record searching in Lorraine, and even more in Moselle, because almost everybody from my mom's side actually came from Moselle. The rest of France, I do when I'm when I'm helping patrons or getting ready for something like the talk, and working on to see what's different. So I have not looked at all of them to see. I would not be surprised if some of them have not or haven't gotten already fuzzy searching, so Soundex and so forth. Though Soundex with French names doesn't always work, because like Brio, the Barbara Brio that I talked about, it's actually spelled Briot. And if I put the T in and the Soundex, I'm going to get a whole different set of names than I'm going to get if I did it as Brio, because that's what it sounds like. It could have ended up being Brioaex, because you get that like Thibodeau is what Thibodeau, Deaux at the end, but you don't, the Eaux is pronounced as a long O. So it's gonna, you're gonna want to try every spelling pretty much that you can. You can usually put in an asterisk or a question mark to show that there might be another letter there. That might help you. Does that answer the question enough?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
wondering if you could truncate the names, because of that very reason, if you could, with so many different possible spellings.
Yeah, I think as far as I know, you should be, most of them should allow you to truncate using an asterisk. Because usually an asterisk means replace the asterisk with as many different letters as you can. And so you could do it that way. Most likely it won't necessarily Soundex or bring like sounding names together. Another registers for military. Here you can search by year. So like in the Ardennes, they have things set up so that you can research it a few different ways, like by name or by year, to just go in and pick by year and then by town and so forth as you go down. So what type of records that they had, and alphabetical list by department and so forth. So you get the cantonel du contingent by military unit and all the people that were in that unit. Oh, I have to be careful with this. I have a touchpad on my laptop here, and so sometimes it jumps it a couple of times. So you get tables of successions and absences. This is, like I said, probate and what happens with the person's property after they die as a succession. And if you are looking in Louisiana here in America, they call their probate court succession court. And so you have it. So what's going on when they died and where the records, where the full record is kept, is it's more of an index to the successions than a full listing out of here's the will, here's the probate, and so forth. And that depends on which department again that you're doing, how much of those records they have up. On GeneNet, they have family trees you can put up on, and you can search your ancestors up to a certain point. So I did Nicholas Lallier from Villiers, and I got a bunch of searches or a bunch of results for it. And you can go in even with the free account, and you could get an email to address to send to these different people and say, hey, basically, hey, you have my ancestor in your tree. Let's talk about how we might be related. This is where I got to one of those where it has a little tree at the bottom. It has information about who his parents are and so forth, and what towns and so forth that he was from. This is, I believe, the father of my Nicholas who came to America. It should be his dad. I found out our Nicholas who came to America was in America. He was always called Nicholas Sr., and his oldest son was Nicholas Jr., and I descend straight from the two of them. And they should have been like something like Nicholas 7th and 8th or something like that, because there was at least 5 or 6 Nicholases going back in France. So you can get all of this is stuff you can get free looking at their thing. And I had right on that one down at the bottom was the one that showed who gave the down here on the bottom. Jean-Paul Godin was the one who put it in, and they'll a lot of times have something where you can you have right there, you can contact him to say, hey, we're related and so forth. So I copied what he had said about himself in there, and I dropped it into Google Translate. Welcome to his family tree. These are the names he's doing, and thanking everybody. So if you notice an error, please tell me. So forth. So like I said, it's both free and paid. They have an archives area on GeneNet. That's pretty much, most of that is under the paid stuff. You can search it, and it's going to tell you when it shows that looks like a page. That's a document that's in the archives, and you get up to a certain point, and it's like, oh, pay us for this, pay us for this. So right there it goes up. For the premium option, you have to pay for it. I paid a little bit so I could actually get to a couple of them for a short period of time so that I could create the talk, but I still need to go back in and do it. Now they do have a few, like the headstones and memorials, where they have images and so forth that you don't have to pay for. Villiers is mostly a paid site. You can get into it for a little bit for free, but almost everything on there is paid. So I have Nicholas Lawyers in Villiers, Moselle. There's at least one death, some that were listed as birth of an infant, listing the parents and so forth. And it pops right in, oh, pay us for the access. So unfortunately, because it's a different country, that does happen. You can get into a little bit details of acts on filet before without paying, but most of it you do have to pay for. This is a death register for Villiers that has some information, and I think I paid almost by document just to get it on there. Now, jumping over to Huguenots. Much of your research, if your French ancestors are Huguenots, much of your research will actually be outside France, because you will not start looking for them in France for quite a while. They'll have been outside of France for quite a while. You will never find them listed as Huguenots inside France, because that actual term was a very derogatory term by the French government and the Catholic Church. Huguenots are all the original Huguenot ancestor will be someone who was probably Catholic, and then when the Protestant Reformation came about, they changed their religion to one of the Protestant religions, and so they were vilified in France. They were killed and such, so that's why you will find your records outside of France. Some of them ended up taking the term Huguenot and using it as a badge of honor after they left France. You will look for registers, and you'll look for the church registers for the town that they came from during the pre-civil registration era, before 1792. Remember that non-Catholics had to register in the Catholic Church, and some of the registers for non-Catholic churches, sometimes they did actually keep registers for those. Those can be in the departmental and regional archives, also in the churches by itself.
Irene, that
Yes.
actually kind of dovetails perfectly into one of the questions that are in the chat box.
Sure.
The question is, are non-Catholic marriages and burials also in Catholic Church records, like baptisms?
Yes, all. It was all Catholic, or all registers or records, birth, death, and marriage would be in the Catholic Church pre-1792. So it was because they were registering it for everything as the official registers of the country. So yeah, great. French Canadian, the biggest collection of French Canadian records is something called the Drouin collection. It's called Drouin collection because it was created by a Mr. Drouin. And the Drouin collection was a huge, huge set of microfilm. The gentleman went and collected all these different church records around around Canada, around the French areas of Canada, plus some records in America for French descendants. Some notarial records, and vital records and so forth. And he had all these different records microfilmed. He was kind of doing it before or in conjunction with the LDS Church. He was not LDS, but he was helping record all this stuff. And there is an archive in Rhode Island that has the original microfilm, and I visited it once, and it is a whole room of cabinet after cabinet after cabinet of microfilm. They have been digitized and put online on Ancestry. Just go into Ancestry and do search card catalog and put the word Drouin, Drouin, and you will pull up the Drouins. You can put it as Drouin or Drouin collection. They all have the words Drouin collection in parentheses in the title. And it comes up, and you can get into these records. And like it shows there, the Quebec, Canada Vital and Church records from the Drouin collection, over 15 million names are indexed in there. The Catholic Church records for Ontario, Canada, 1.6 million names. Acadia, Canada Vital and Church records, basically 1.2 million. Acadia is where the Cajuns for Louisiana came from, and so some of these will be your Acadian and Cajun background ancestors. So you get down to like there's a little set of miscellaneous French records. Yeah, they only had 180 that were indexed, names that were indexed in that at the time that I did this screenshot. After the Druin collection, the next thing you want, and I'm not even going to try and say this in French, there's a repertoire of the acts of baptism, marriage, and death in the ancient Quebec, in ancient Quebec. It's Quebec from the 17th century up to 1765 at least. Some parts of these repertoires actually come past 1765, and you want to, I thought I had a second slide for that. You want to look and see if there's a library that owns this near you, or a library that owns it that will send it out on interlibrary loan to look, and the volumes on it are separated by dates, and they are a very wonderful set of indexed records for baptisms, marriage, and death in ancient Quebec. We have them here on as books at Clayton. We do not send our books out on interlibrary loan, though. They are actually in French, but the names, it's a straight index of names with abstractions of the various records, so they're pretty easy to look at. When you are looking for your ancestors who came from France directly to America, most Huguenot ancestors did not come directly to America. They went to England, and they fled to all other countries in Europe, and then eventually made it to America, though a few came straight over. But if they came straight to America, do a place search in the LDS catalog for the department and the region of France that they came from. Look for the words emigration and immigration as the subject headings. And then also look in, like I say, the HPL, the Houston Public Library catalog, look for emigration and immigration. Any library in America that would have books on French emigration and immigration, you can look at WorldCat or worldcat.org to find what libraries in the country would have books on immigration and immigration from France to America. And that particular book, it comes up here at Clayton. It's basically those from Lorraine who came to North America. And actually, someone had abstracted a bunch of stuff and had some of my ancestors in it. When you need to translate your French documents, go into Google Translate, Babelfish, Reverso, or Word Reference, and use those to to put in the information you have in the French spelling and what it is in English. Sometimes you need to put in the accent marks, and sometimes you don't. It'll go both ways. Also, translating documents, you can use the Family Search Wiki. They will have a bunch of, they have word lists on the Family Search Wiki for what, birth, death, marriage, months, years, things like that. And also, you might end up paying someone from the Association for Professional Genealogists who does French research to translate a document for you. Sometimes that's the better way to go when you're translating the actual handwritten French documents. So for closing, long live your French ancestors. Good luck in your research with your French ancestors. You can email me here at the library about your French ancestors. If it's specifically the French ancestor stuff, you can email me directly. You can also email us at the Clayton reference right there in the middle, cla.reference@houstontx.gov, and we'll try to answer your question. I just noticed that looks like it has a space there. And if you want to call and speak to us, we're open 10 to 4 Tuesday through Saturday. I'm not here every single day. I am usually here Tuesday through Thursday, and then every other weekend, Friday and Saturday is my day off, because I do work on Mondays behind the scenes to catalog our material. So I am going to hit stop sharing so that we can go back to looking at
there's a couple
images.
of questions in there for you in the chat box too.
Okay, and that way I can pop to the chat box because I couldn't see it with the other. So the maps I show in my presentation, some of them I basically Googled and pulled them up. I Googled for arrondissements of Paris, French regions and like that. A few, I think one image I might have pulled from a book. So I can see that at the end. I'm going to slide back up to the top quickly so that I can see what else. Is there any other question that you see, Sue, that I should
start in the chat box right around 11:49 a.m. and going downwards is where most of the questions are.
49. Okay, so 1:49 p.m.
Oh, I guess it's on your time. Yeah, you're looking at your local time. It'd be 11:49 a.m. our time.
Yep.
Let's see. Melissa Barker, are you still logged on, Melissa? Let me see here. Yeah, you are. Melissa, would you like to go ahead and unmute your microphone and share that information with the class about your French family?
Okay. So,
I can share it, but I'll probably mutilate the pronunciation. Melissa says her maiden name is Lemaistre, originally spelled Lemaistre, is from the Jersey Isles. She can trace my direct line back to Abraham, and I'll spell it again, Lemaistre, who was born in 1636 in the Old Jerseys in the parish of St. Mary's. And I have his baptismal record. He came to the U.S. sometime between 1700 and 1720. The first record I find for him in the U.S. is June 27, 1720 in Charles County, Maryland. Disposition filed in the land office where he says his parents are John and Sarah with the same last name. I have not gotten back any further in France. Any suggestions for her, Irene?
Start with look on LDS and do place searches for her, for the town and so forth. Born in the Old Jerseys in the parish of St. Mary's. Look for the town that his baptismal record was recorded in and see if LDS had microfilmed farther back from that time period. It might be 1636. That's pretty good time period to get back to. It might be he was right in the beginning of the recording for there, so you might not be able to go back any farther, though like I said, some records go back to the 1500s. So I would look and see on LDS, do they have for that town or that area records that go farther back, and then jump onto, go to the archives, departmental archives for that area and see what they have digitized and put online, because they're constantly, every time I jump back in, for my places, they've digitized more and put it online. They just, unfortunately, I think they're going alphabetical. So since Villiers is the name of one of my places, I think it's going to take forever to get to Villiers and get more information online. But I would look to see what the departmental archives has digitized and what they have.
Okay, good advice. Now, Dave asked a question in the chat box, but I think you might have already answered. I think this question came in before you were talking about the Huguenots. He said, since France is mainly Catholic and mainly Catholic churches, are there church records for the Huguenots?
There can be some. There are some records for non-Catholic churches. They stay in the church. They also go to the church. If the church by itself had a diocese, they can be at the diocesan level. And there are some in the regional archives for where that church was. So sometimes there will be ones that ended up because sometimes those churches didn't last for a long time, and the records just kind of ended up going to the departmental archives. So I would definitely look into the departmental archives, keep your French dictionary and your French, Google Translate and Babelfish and so forth available to copy and over and see what's there.
Great advice. Okay, let's see here. Susan, I see you're still logged on. Would you like to unmute your microphone? And you said you wanted to mention something about Family Search Wiki?
Hey, yes, Family Search Wiki is one of the places I go when I know nothing about anything. And I put in a subject and I just put in France. And your map that you showed us that have all the different regions is on that website. And you'll find it right there. It's a great map. I thought it was really good that you showed those in your presentation.
Yeah. I don't think I actually pulled it from their site originally, so it's great that it's on there also.
Okay, so I'll open it up to the class at this point. If you have a question that you'd like to ask Irene directly, please unmute your microphone and ask the question directly. And while I'm waiting for that, Irene, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Now, this might be kind of a baited question, but how often were out of wedlock births back in the 1800s or so, 1700s, 1800s in France? I mean, we all know that there are cultural differences between, countries.
They weren't that uncommon. I've seen quite a few where the first child or first two children were of a couple were before they got married, at least the first child. I have at least two in my direct line that were not, but it was sometimes it was just that the priest didn't get around, or the priest might actually be going from one town to another. He might have had to take care of a few different parishes. The space between them wasn't necessarily that far apart, but the church record books that I was looking at, I would see it about every third page. There'd be at least one. Sometimes every 2 pages, every third page, there seemed to be at least one. But it was more often that it was a couple that ended up getting married that I've noticed, versus just being a couple that you never quite see getting married.
Okay, great. Now, you mentioned, you talked a little bit about military records. We have a wonderful book here in our library, and I'm sure you have the same book in your library, about where to find World War I records from all over the world. where the depositories are for,
Mm-hmm.
for each country. And I know we have a whole section in that book for France. So I just wanted to kind of
Okay.
let the class know that if that's something that they're interested in pursuing, I'd be more than happy to show them where the book is on the shelf. And then let's see here. I'm looking through my list of questions.
Is your catalog online?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'll double check that title to see if we have it or not.
Yeah, it's not a very thick book. It's kind of a small book, but it's just jam packed with information about where to write in each country to find soldiers' records who served in World War I.
Okay.
And then I have another question. If you are, just because my class is a mixture of beginning, intermediate, and advanced, and very advanced people. And for the beginner, if you don't know where your ancestor came from, let's say you can trace them to, I don't know, New York or wherever, Pennsylvania. Where would you begin to look? What clues would you look for in American records to find out where in France they came from?
Okay. Yeah, because you really need the town to get anywhere in any other country. So it doesn't matter if it's France or any other country. You want to look at any church records that they have here in America, because you slightly might get a town a little more often in a church record than you do in any type of civil record here in America. So the marriage records, sometimes we'll say the town somebody's from. Look for naturalization. Your naturalization may not say a town in America. An American naturalization doesn't always say what town somebody's from up until you get the late 1800s, early 1900s, and anything after 1906 should say what town they're from. But always look for a naturalization. Marriage records will say earlier than that. And also baptisms of children sometimes will say where mom and dad are from originally. What else? Marriage, baptism, death. Occasionally a death record will say really where somebody's from, but you got to remember a death record's only as good as the person who's left alive to give it, because the person who knew the information is dead and they ain't giving us any more information themselves. What else? Look for Bible records. Look for if they wrote in their Bible. That was actually where I found the fact that my Bush embryo ancestors were from Villiers, because he wrote it in the record. But if you do not know French yourself and you have somebody translate, whatever they translate that for the town, or for whatever they translate, double check to see if that's a place, because we translated it Villiers, Viller. It translates as the word village. They're from a village so small it's just called village in French. And the people who translated it for me said, because it was the high school French teacher from back home and a lady who spoke German, it was a combo of French and German words. And they both translated it as John Bush was from a village, his wife was from the same village, and they got married in that village. And it took me, I found out like 3 years later, no, that's the town named Villiers. And when I was looking at Villiers records from the LDS, as I was scanning down through looking in the regular indexes and like that, that was how I spotted that my Lalliers were from the same town. So my Brios, my Bushes, and my Lalliers are all from the same town in France. And you just have to be careful, but you gotta look at anytime you're looking for where they are from, look at every record in America that you can find for them to see if any one of them gives you the tiniest, slightest hint of where they might be from.
Good advice. I like that. Now let's see here. We were talking about towards the end of your presentation, you talked about all the different sources online for translation. I wanted to point out to the class also that there are a few really good Facebook pages out there that you can join for free. You can post the document and they will translate it for you. They have people all over the world, who have joined that Facebook page. And I think it's just called Genealogy Translations or some variation thereof. But it's not hard to find if you just do a search in Facebook pages. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Oh, and then
they also have something on Family Search like that too, where you can join a research group through Family Search, like for France or for Germany and like that. And you can, okay, I found this record on Family Search, or I found this record, and what's it translate as? And I actually got I'm on a German one on there, and I have to pop a document up on there and say, hey, can you figure out what this says about? Because I have a German line that, hey, I finally found my town, and here's the record for the baptism of the child. And it's like, yep, mom wasn't married. And so there's no, that one as a German one, it does not look to me like it says anything about who the father is. And I need to pop it up on there and say, does anybody else get this from who actually knows how to read these German church records? Is that what you get to, that there's the father's name is nowhere on this page?
Oh, that's really good to know. Well, speaking of the LDS Church, the times I have been in Salt Lake City, as you know, they have different parts of the library that are dedicated to different parts of the world. And I know that they have librarians there who speak and read and write the languages. So I can't encourage everyone enough, if you ever have the chance to go to the LDS library in Salt Lake City, to please do so and take your hardest research questions with you, because they are wonderful there. They are just fabulous in wanting to help you. And then, of course, now I have a question. This is more of a librarian to librarian question. How big is your genealogy book collection?
We are, what did we figure it out to be? About 90 to 94, 5,000 books.
Oh my gosh.
And or bound volumes, I should say. Some of those are the periodicals, because we have 3,200 titles of periodicals, genealogy journals and magazines and whatever. We also have, what is our microfilm? It's 90 some cabinets of microfilm, and almost every one of them is full, or in almost every drawer there's 11 drawers per cabinet. And up there, I think maybe we would have the equivalent of 2 to maybe 2.5, 3 cabinets that would be empty when you if you take the little bit of space and actually figured it out. Family histories, I don't know how. I mean, the number of those is included in the books, so I don't know separately how many those. But we are a 2-story building. First floor is all geographic, and second floor is family histories and microfilm and microfiche.
Oh my gosh, that is wonderful. Well, I'm definitely gonna, next time I go out that area, I'm definitely gonna stop by and spend some time there. Right. I find that I can spend weeks there. Yep. Unfortunately, with a family, you have to kind of share your time on vacations.
Yeah. Okay, and then they don't all just want to watch you in the library. It's funny.
Yeah. And then we do have some purists here in my class. Some of the records you showed look more like it was extracted information, like you said, indexes. If you're the true purist and you want to see the original record, where would you go?
If it is an Etat Civil record or a parish register, then you might the parish registers, you can check to see if LDS has actually digitized those and put them online. And the Etat Civil, you might have to go to Salt Lake and look at the microfilm. Otherwise, for all of them, you would have to go to France. LDS does not have very many of the military French records. So you might have to actually go to the French archives itself, the various archives, departmental archives, to look at it. There are some at the French National Archives and French, the Library of France. There would be some there, mostly in the archives, though, the various archives. Though some of them actually get down to the actual records on their departmental archives. So I would definitely check the departmental archives website first to see for your department how far down into the actual records you can go.
Okay, good. Good advice. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. So I'll give the class another opportunity. Any last minute questions for Irene? If you do, go ahead and unmute your microphone. We'll give it just a few more seconds here before we thank her and let her go back to her workday. Okay, it looks like, Irene, that was all the questions. So
right.
Once again, thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. And I will go ahead and stop the recording in just a moment. But before I do that, once again, thank you for allowing us to record. And it'll take a couple weeks to get it up on YouTube, but our marketing department does a great job of that. And I'll send you the link once it's done if you'd like. And
okay,
let's see
sure.
here. Oh, go ahead.
We've done HPL, Houston Public Library, has also done a bunch of our presentations and put them up on YouTube. So if anybody wants to just go into YouTube and search Houston Public Library, you could do Houston Public Library Genealogy, and it should bring up most of them, but it'll be like the Houston Public Library History Research Centers, they want to call us instead of special collections, playlist on there. And our department is not quite as quick at getting them up. They just put up, there's a bunch that I've done and a bunch some that Sue's done and like that. The funniest thing is the two that went out that are the two latest ones for me. One is over a year old, and because they kind of lost it for a while of where it went. And then the other one was I think I did it in November. Or no, I did it in October. And that one went up right towards the end of October. And they both went up within a day of each other.
Well, wonderful. Yeah, we are always looking for free opportunities to learn. That's in my opinion, as a librarian, that's where it should always be, is free knowledge. So I thank you for that information. So with that, before I stop the recording, I'll let the class know if you'd like to stay for the next hour and a half of class, you're more than welcome to. We have a wonderful time in the second half of class where we combined all of our knowledge to work on whatever topic or discussion you want to have that day. And I hope you will all stay. And if you don't, all you have to do is click the red in button and that'll take you out. And once again, Irene, I'll say thank you so much. And if you'd like, you can go ahead and just click on that red in button and we'll say thank you so much again.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for having me. And, if you guys want to call, go ahead and call and ask your questions here. We collect for the whole country. So we answer questions for whatever state your ancestors are from.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.